Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Career Mode, right from the R&D building, so research and development. So today in the start we have some science. We kind of acquired some science, and this was done off camera by doing a few missions and driving around the KSP and gathering some data. But for today's mission, we're gonna upgrade the tracking station, so we have patch connects and the mission control system to enable us on planning maneuver nodes. So our today's goal is recovering scientific data from the space environment and recovering and transmit scientific data from the surface, which we weren't able to do in the last episode. And on top of that, the new Explore the Moon contract with with walking on the surface and rendezvousing to craft. So just checking quickly whether we have some new interesting contracts here that we have or that we want to take, but no, not really. So let's jump right into the vehicle assembly building. Now I've already built more or less the main part of our ship here, but I'm still gonna quickly go over it. Here at the top we have our two crew cabins, one of which shall be decoupled and land on the surface. This will be the upper one, which is the lander. And we have on the lander landing stage with those 3 baguette fuel tanks and the small fuel tank, which shall land us on the surface, and then the upper part shall return back up to the orbiting main craft, where we can perform the rendezvous and thus fulfill the contract, and then hop our crew back into the main, more or less, crew compartment with the heat shield, and then fly back home. The more or less the booster, or like the bottom part of the whole rocket, is the same as we used in the previous episode, where we went only in orbit around the moon, and then we had a lot of excess fuel left. So I decided we can definitely use the main part of that station. I mean, of course, of the rocket, in order, well, because we had so much fuel left, so it should be more or less enough delta V and enough lifting capabilities. The only thing we're gonna edit down here is the fuel ducts, which I've mentioned in the previous video, which are pretty useless, and I'm not used to using liquid fueled engines without fuel ducts, especially in this kind of configuration. Now quickly going over the staging, that's the thing on the right side, of course, and checking that everything is fired at the proper timing, so that we're not gonna fire our last like our parachutes on takeoff and thus screwing up the entire rocket, which will probably result in a rapid unplanned disassembly. Since Valentina was going to the moon in the last episode, we're gonna take Jebediah for today's mission as our brave cosmonaut. And I think without further ado, let's save and launch this baby. Now, on the launch pad, as always, time acceleration, yay, so you guys don't have to sit through everything in real time. Going up more or less the same way we did last time, slightly more stable, I guess, yeah, probably, than in the last episode. However, still not the perfect craft concerning stable aerodynamic flight modeling. Whatever, who cares, whatever, as long as it gets into orbit, I think it should be, well, I think as long as it gets into orbit, we're fine the way it is. Well, we're fine, I mean, like this, the rocket that I've designed. Yeah, so now we're gonna have the beautiful separation of those boosters, which has been also taken a screenshot of, and this screenshot is available on my Instagram page, which I'll link down below, if you want to see the notice of a new video slightly ahead, a few hours earlier than the video gets uploaded on YouTube, or some other also channel related stuff like other exploration stuff, especially elite dangerous exploration, which I have not recorded but still decided to share a few beautiful pictures from Nebula. Now back to the footage on screen, we can say that I've used up the bottom stage, and we're now trying to catch up, or at least burning, well, not catch up, but we're burning towards the up so that we raise up apoapsis in order to get more or less a good orbit. So now we are on our orbital/transfer stage, which has already used up half of its fuel, which is not really the way I planned the fuel consumption, but whatever. It looks not too bad. Now let's plan a maneuver node and head towards the moon. Now, in almost like 2/3 into the moonburn, we can see our main transfer stage is running out of fuel, and I decided to ditch it. Ditching here where the heat shield was supposed to be, and because we don't have anything really else to do, we're gonna use our descent module in order to complete the transfer burn to the moon, which was definitely not planned, but well, it works more or less, I guess. Now, skipping towards the encounter with the moon, we're here on a collision course with the moon. Now we're gonna correct this path so that we will not have a collision, of course, with the moon, doing by pointing out which radially. Yeah, now going up towards like time accelerating down here, also taking some crew reports and measurements of how's it called, all those scientific instruments, so that we can fulfill first of all the goal of our contract, the science data from the space around moon, and of course gain some science for our personal use in the research and development center. We're going pretty close, and I think, but last time we were even closer, though I'm not really sure about that at the moment. Now going into the, well, starting to decelerate with the stage which was supposed to do it, so I think that's okay-ish. So yeah, not really too big, if we're more or less back to plan, even though the fuel count is of course lower than expected. But now by the camera shaking, we realized that we have entered an orbit around the moon, or at least I thought we entered orbit around the moon, even though we're still in trajectory, but this escape trajectory, so flying out. But now we are definitely in orbit around the moon, a highly eccentric orbit. So let's fast forward towards our last ascent part, or like just coming more down. You can see there the last bit of time acceleration after one orbit and slowing down at the apoapsis. Now I decided, because we're really low in fuel and I don't want to drag this all heat shielded capsule with us all the way up and down, I decided to, well, transfer Jeopardy into the landing stage only and ditch more or less the way it was supposed to be, just that we can let the other capsule crash into the surface of the moon. Now, after some more slow deceleration and time acceleration, again deceleration, we're now on the final 2 kilometers with Kerbal setting in the background towards the surface of the moon. A slow and very in a very slow and controlled manner, we're going to touch down here by using the ends of the fuel, like of the ascent stage, the fuel tank, like the bottom of the fuel tank of the ascent stage, because the descent stage ran out of fuel during the descent. So again, not going according to plan. For those who are new to Kerbal Space Program, you have to be able to improvise and do some kind of Kerbaling around in order to, well, most of the time, if you're not perfectly planning a mission from scratch, by using delta V calculators and other tools which are pretty useful, which I might even use in a future serious type-ish thing. Installing some mods, of course, is necessary for this to be able to, like, that you have access to those different other opportunities, I mean, to those other tools, and you like calculate your delta V usage, calculate the delta V that you have, and so on and so forth. And there are plenty of other videos on YouTube. If you're really interested in that and you can't wait, then go ahead and check them out. Just search it and you'll find something interesting there. Now, planning a flag, which is almost the thing we have to do, well, especially it's the first landing, our first manned landing on the moon. So first moon landing here, even though, speaking of first landing, our first landing thing was a miserable disaster. So our probe crashed last time, so it can't be considered a real landing. So this is the first landing. However, our poor Kerbal Jeopardy really hopes he can get home, since this capsule has no crew. This crew capsule has no parachute, so, and of course no heat shield, so we have the problem of Jeopardy burning up in the atmosphere on re-entry and then smashing into the ground with like a too high velocity, and this getting squished down like a pancake. Yay, that's not really something Jeopardy really wants to do. Let's see. So I just forgot to how's it called, grab those experiments. So I'm gonna grab those experiments down here. And since taking those experiments and flying around here was a little bit tedious, let's just switch on the time acceleration once again. I really like the background music. I don't know how well you can hear it, but it's really amusing hearing it in more than the like accelerated manner. Now anyways, back to the rather interesting thing is taking off. I decided to go now for a polar orbit, since we're pretty far north, and going into a more equatorial or plane orbit. Equatorial is it's definitely not equatorial, but however going into a eccentric orbit is not going to be practical for like the further development, for either sending Jebediah back home or completing the other part of our mission, because as you can see right now we haven't done the rendezvous, and since we ditched our ascent stage and the main stage, or well, the main stage is not in orbit, so we can't really rendezvous with our ascent stage with the let's go home stage, so we can fulfill this contract by this the way it was planned to do, like the way it was planned to be. And so we had to jump back into the VAB, and now let's see what my idea is. So I'm going to take the same thing we just had, so ditch the entire lander part, then ditch those SRBs, so solid rocket boosters are going to be of not really a lot of use. I'm going to use 4 of those other liquid fuel boosters, and instead of 3 by using fuel ducts as well. Now we need a probe core, since the crew compartment has to be empty in order to have space for Jebediah, so we need a probe core to steer this whole thing, and the probe core needs of course an antenna and a solar panel. And now I decided, because we're already bringing a probe core, let's make it into a satellite, into a relay satellite, and we will leave this relay satellite in orbit around the moon, so we can always jump to it and do some, how are they called, science data from space around the moon missions, and this will be really useful to gain a few more free-ish funds, and some science points is also good. And we have a relay network for emergencies, or just not emergencies, just generally we have a relay network. Now back to the launch, which you can see right now on screen. It is really wobbling left and right, and I'm brute forcing it. I'm really turning hard, really not caring about efficiency too much, since I thought, well, the payload, like the previous rocket, brought an entire lander with it, and of course the thing that you can see right now in the lander, like added the lander, and we had a lot of fuel left in terms of it was enough fuel to even land on the surface, so I think didn't really thought about it being not having enough fuel. Then ditching of course the boosters, and by the way, which I only noticed around this time, is we have a really efficient launch, even though I didn't plan on doing it really efficiently. Now going into maneuver notes again, doing maneuver noting, this time I decided to leave it in, so of course in time accelerated manner, so you don't have to sit through everything. But you can see right now a problem already coming in. We are coming in at an equatorial orbit, or at least on the equatorial plane, so around the way we came the first time with Jebediah as well. However, Jebediah is in a polar orbit, so rendezvousing, which is, for those who don't know, being more or less like meeting the other spacecraft. But I think that's more or less obvious, meeting the other spacecraft in space. Yeah, so you can, for example, dock at a later stage, or just wave hands at each other, I guess, and look out of the window and think, yeah, that's a nice thing, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess that's more or less clear. So there will be a few issues docking, and because it was a little bit more difficult, I think it's also more or less interesting having a look at how I managed to do it. Or did I manage to do it in the first place? That's the question. That's the big thing, the big question mark. You guys don't know, and I don't know either. Now, yeah, I'm raising my periapsis, above the moon onto a polar orbit, so we have more or less over the poles for the rendezvous, of course. But now, once I'm decelerating and putting myself into an orbit around the moon, slightly higher than Jebediah, I came in at a I think almost perfect 90 degrees. So I don't know that's almost the worst thing to do to get into a, how's it called? It's almost the worst thing to go for in rendezvous by this manner. So I switched from this craft because the rescue craft was starting to get low on fuel, or at least not really low, but up until this fuel level where I really think, yeah, I should start being concerned about fuel usage. So since I knew we have more than enough fuel in the ascent stage, because we still had those external droppable fuel tanks, I decided to switch over to it and do the whole rendezvous maneuvering by it. Well, yeah, with its fuel, since we're not going to take it home anyway, so why not just use this fuel and beat. Now, going into the highest point in orbit where our velocity is the lowest, we can change our trajectory very efficiently, very efficiently, since our speed is low and we need less speed to change the direction we're heading. So that's why I accelerated and increased our apoapsis up until this point. Now I was burning at the ascending node, so, for the main burn. Now in the next orbital path we're going to burn at the ascending node again. This is where the both orbits intersect in one plane. Kind of, in theory, where you could crash or meet the other guy by this definition. Now using the maneuver node to see to time warp ahead, so that we know where the other spacecraft will be relative to us in multiple passes around the orbit, and by altering in a few orbits we can really see how well this might work out in meeting how is it efficient. So now I've planned these small maneuver nodes in a couple of orbits, so I'm just time accelerating here like crazy, spinning around, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Now to this tiny burn of a couple seconds, which is really just a teeny tiny bit, so that we really get into a good trajectory and meeting up with our Kerbal, who has been now stranded in space for around 3 weeks, I guess, because 2 weeks, you could say 14 days, so 14 days, that's fortnight, and so for one fortnight he was there. Now we're really in visual range, as you can see, for 1.4 kilometers now, just switching the knife ball by clicking onto the speed gauge onto the target mode, and then you can just decelerate and completely slow down your aircraft, no, not quite aircraft, spacecraft, and then point towards the target, and then you can more or less fly towards it, taking another lovely screenshot, completing the mission goal of a rendezvous. And now here comes an interesting part. I'm going to point retrograde in orbit so that we can slow down our aircraft again, no, our spacecraft, tapping the acceleration like this throttle button, then jumping out, picking up all the science data from the crew module, and then EVAing back with our EVA pack. Why did I do that? So, well, why leaving space junk in orbit if you can just get rid of it? As you can see, the other craft is on a collision course with the surface of the moon, thus we won't have a space junk sitting around like we have around Kerbal with the transfer stage, which was left more or less in the mid-flight, like in the middle of the transfer burn. Now, anyways, I think since we have boarded now successfully the rescue craft, from here on out everything is more or less clear. We're gonna head home by escaping the sphere of influence of the moon and then burning retrograde. However, burning retrograde after 2 orbits and then decelerating and coming down with re-entry is not the most interesting thing, especially if this takes quite some time. Now we are already at, well, I skip forward to the successful touchdown and we have a recovery, so everything went well in the end. Yay! Now we can see the result of 42.8 signs, so we have 200, and we got, of course, we got the Jeopardy back with 3 experience points more. Now just going over the messengers, you can see we have completed both contracts, or even all 3 contracts, because the other contract, the Explore the Moon contract, was already more or less completed earlier, since it was only, well, you only needed to rendezvous and walk around the moon, so we did that. a few, like you can say, the subcontract, like the sub points, getting all the money we received. Speaking of money, in the beginning of the episode we had around 600 something thousand, and then we spent on upgrading the R&D, and no, not the R&D. The R&D is the thing we're going to upgrade next. Now upgrading the tracking station and the mission control, and now we are more or less back to the same amount. Anyways, now into the science bay. I mean, of course, into the R&D. God, today I'm really biting my tongue a lot. Now, into the R&D where we can pick 2 new, like research nodes where you can really get new parts, really interesting parts. Heavy rocketry looks interesting because, well, they are 90 each, so heavy rocketry or any other things. So because we have already the fuel tanks, we're gonna go, like the big fuel tanks, we're gonna go for heavy rocketry, and next we're gonna go for advanced flight controls. So, and this is it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I really look forward to the next one, and I hope you too. So on this note, thank you very much for watching, guys, and Spaceship signing out.